Now, he was once tipped as a future Prime Minister, but loathed by many as a racist after his notorious Rivers of Blood speech. Enoch Powell certainly left his mark on British politics, whatever you thought of him. A new play is coming to London, entitled The Tulip Tree, centring on the life of the controversial politician. But the production looks at Enoch Powell's life even from a very different perspective to the one we all know. To tell us more, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the writer of the play, Oliver Michell, and Alexander Shenton, who plays Enoch Powell. Good morning to you both, gents. So let's just start sort of with the inspiration behind putting on the production, Oliver. What was it that made you want to do this play?
I was really just reading a biography of Powell, and obviously the biographies focus on his later political career, but I came across the story of his love affair with Barbara Kennedy, which happened well before he was married. When he wasn't a young man, he was in his late 30s. And it's an extraordinary story because he became infatuated with her and convinced himself that he had proposed to her and that she had accepted. And subsequent events proved that both of those assumptions were a complete fantasy on his part. So I just became fascinated by that story, and I started to write about it, and that was the origin of the play. And
your role as Enoch Powell, Alexander, how much sort of research did you have to do into what type of character he was, and how would you sort of essentially build your sort of repertoire as an actor to convey such a charismatic politician?
Well, you've got to know him as a political figure, but it's a story about the man. So for me, it's equally important to know all of the historical facts about him and what he was involved in. But we're talking about a very particular aspect of his life. So it's him as a character, as a man that fell in love, and that as a human emotion, it's more important that I'm able to play that than necessarily reel off a list of facts as Enoch Powell. It's just not an imitation of him. We're sharing this story about him. Like you say, it's not about the Rivers of Blood speech. It's not about this controversial politician. It's about a man who fell in love and had his heart broken because of what was happening in his head was very different to what was actually happening in the real world.
So do you think this relationship with Barbara Kennedy maybe sort of impacted on the way that he was as a politician and as a person?
I think it reflects on his later career in quite an interesting way, because Powell had a very strange early life. He was regarded as an intellectual prodigy. Many people thought of him as a genius. He became a university professor at the age of 25. The Second World War broke out. He immediately gave up his academic career. He went into the army, had a prodigiously successful career in the army. So there's no question that he had a very powerful analytical intelligence. But throughout his career, both in the army and in politics, he was capable of these moments of blindness, where despite his huge intelligence, there would be these spectacular lapses of judgment. And I think in this relationship with a young woman, which was his first relationship, or at least his first heterosexual relationship that he had before he was married, there's an inkling of the man later on in life. And that's not made explicit in the play. We're not dealing with politics at all. But it's just an echo, perhaps, of what comes later on.
Sure. Alex, when you sort of took on the role of Enoch Powell, did you know much about the backstory? Did you know much about him as a person rather than a politician?
Yeah, well, I was very much aware of him as a key political figure, or what could have been an even more influential political figure had things not taken the route that they did. But no, I wasn't fully aware, and so obviously you set off, you research as much as you can. But through playing it, because we were at the Edinburgh Fringe last year, had a really successful time there, I sort of gained a bit of an understanding of him, but also, like I said, this like the emotional side of him, that although he comes across as quite stern and serious, within him, he's deeply, deeply in love with this woman and so emotionally moved by what happens. He actually references it in an interview, I think it's like 20, 30 years later, and he recites a poem that he wrote about the moment, and he's drawn to tears, like 30 years after it's happened. So to deeply hold on to that is something I find fascinating. What is it that obviously shaped him somehow, especially inwardly, not necessarily outwardly in his politics or in the decisions he made?
And in terms of how history may judge Enoch Powell, what do you think the sort of outcome will be for that?
It's a different aspect of his life. The relationship is mentioned in both the major biographies, so it's not that the relationship hasn't been public before, but Enoch Powell is very much in the news. I mean, I probably one of the only people to have a Google alert for Enoch Powell. And he's in the papers every day, every time immigration's mentioned,
exactly.
European Union, etc., etc. So Powell is very much relevant, and we hope that audiences in London will be surprised.
I've got to wrap you up there, gents. I'm really sorry about that. It's on
the Drayton Theatre in South Kensington. It starts on the 31st of March and runs till the 25th of April.
Thanks very much indeed. Look forward to it. You're watching This Day Live. Do stay with us.